host of Aaron's Hour, Aaron Phillips.
Hi there. Welcome to another live edition of Aaron's Hour, coming to you live from the WWDB TV studios in the heart of Las Vegas. I am Aaron Phillips, which is very good because if my name wasn't the title, the show would really be stupid. So thank you for tuning in. As always, you're with us for the next hour. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be one of the highest ranked shows that I've ever done because the man sitting to my right, Mr. Mike Powell, is the author of a book called Escaping the Kill Zone. John, can I have my one shot, please? Thank you very much.
You mean like that?
Like that. Very good. Thank you. See, I learned them well. Available on Amazon. Here it is, Escaping the Kill Zone. I'll go into my journey from LAPD Zebra unit to undercover federal operative in the Las Vegas Mafia. And who doesn't like stories about the Las Vegas Mafia? Right here. Mike is here with me in the studio. We'll talk about that in a little bit. His background, his experience. I'm excited. No, we just happen to be dressed in black and the light blue at the same coincidence. Mr. Mike, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, man, I'm so excited. We're literally, folks, we were just talking up to the intro as it was ending about his book and his background. And man, I know some of these people like this that he also dealt with too. So we're going to have some fun talking about that stuff. And any other stuff, remember, call in 702-992-3207. If you're watching us on Facebook, you got us on my page, Aaron's Hour Show. We're at WWDB TV. Same two channels on YouTube. If you prefer YouTube, that's fine. It's high noon here in Vegas, which means it's soccer, it's food shopping, it's running around. Download the WWDB TV to your Android app, or if you have iPhone, WWDB TV LV. Check us on the go. If a show's not on, a plethora of music will be playing. Live music, well, sort of live because it's coming out of the studio. To have that. Now, in 72 hours, if you like Roku, the show will be up on Roku. Make sure you download the WWDB TV channel to your Roku service. Catch this show with I have a funny feeling after this show, you're going to want to go back to hear all of Mike's stories and, again, how to get information. I'm getting the book, which is available on Amazon. See, that's 2 times in 2 minutes. See how I'm pushing? I got you. It's like QVC around here. You know, we got everybody covered. So check it all out. We're going to have a good time today. But first, as always, it's now time for Vegas and Rap 2.0.
With a nod to the past and an eye to the future, here is Aaron Phillips with Vegas Unwrapped 2.0.
All right, welcome back. 2.0 is here. Homage to our buddy Ricky Cash, of course. All right, as always, some news. And now I was away last week for 5 days in Tucson, so I kind of missed some of the stories of things that were happening, but just enough to bring a couple of stories to the forefront to keep you all informed. Now, remember, we got July 4th about, 10 days away from now, right? Roughly, July 4th holiday. It's going to be nuts in this town. So and it's in the middle of the week. It's a Tuesday because my birthday is Wednesday the 5th, just in case you want to send me birthday presents. I do actually have a birthday fundraiser on Facebook to help support Firefighter Memorial Transport, Frank Pizarro's organization. So you see that on my Facebook page. Please make a donation and help Frank out with not only a transport called the Caisson that will help all of fallen emergency services first responders, as well as military personnel to give them the proper send-off. But check that out. Let's support them for my birthday. All right. Speaking of birthdays, did you hear about the guest who won $1 million in 3 different jackpots at Caesar's Palace in 48 hours?
No.
Right? Most people are lucky and happy to win, what, 1 in a lifetime, if they're lucky? No, this person won 3 separate jackpots. You ready for this? All right, so here it goes. So Caesar's Palace, blah, blah, blah. So the first one came at 4:42 p.m. last Saturday, which was good for $400,000 at video poker jackpot. Not bad. I mean, $400,000.
It's a lot of money.
And I would walk away and be done, right? That would be me. All right. The same game hit another same player, same guest, hit another jackpot for $200,000 10 minutes later. So it's $600,000 in 10 minutes. That's not a bad day, right? It's a good day at the office.
Right.
Did you ever make $600,000 in 10 minutes?
No.
I didn't even want to know if I'll make that in a lifetime, let alone in 10. I know John has.
Not that I can talk about.
No, right. I got so many responses. Now, the third jackpot Where is it? The winning streak continued into the next day when that same individual, I want to know what this person was drinking. This time it was a video poker jackpot at 11 p.m. 48 hours later, another $400,000. $1 million in 3 jackpots in 48 hours.
I'll bet he's being investigated.
If not, I know somebody here that can probably get one started. $400,000. I mean, $1 million in 48 hours. I mean, that's unfathomable. People,
Right, yeah.
listen. A couple of months ago, I went to pick up a friend of mine at the airport. I still call it McCarran because it's habit after 25 years. No disrespect to Harry Reid. So I went to pick up my buddy, and I was so I walked in. Usually, the airport does not have the best of odds there, right?
Right.
You've got trapped people in there, so they're going to soak all the money. So I took a $10 bill, killing time. This one machine said, "Hey, you come over here." So I sat down, and I lost the first couple of rolls. Then all of a sudden, it's ching, ching, chinking. I'm used to winning 10. And so I'm watching the counter go up. I'm like, all right, it's going to stop at 40. All right, 60. I won $300 on that machine.
Wow.
I said, see ya, rolled that off, and I walked out of the airport waiting for my buddy. So,
Yeah.
but you know what's been fascinating since the pandemic? It seems to me that casinos are reporting more winnings nowadays
Mhm.
than they ever did, right?
Right.
And why do you think that is? They're trying to reel them back in, right?
Yes.
It's crazy. How about scratch-offs? Do you see how many people are winning scratch-offs across the country?
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah.
Right? Virginia.
Different states.
Yeah, right. Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania. And we wonder why folks in Nevada would love to have a rip-off thing here. But of course, our good buddies at the casinos, they want every dollar going into. Do you remember, how long are you here in Vegas again? Long time.
8 years.
So I think it was within the 8-year period that there was a proposal to do the rip-off stuff, the scratch-off stuff. For every dollar. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, it's called scratch off, not rip off.
Oh, yeah. Well, back east, we had these ones where you had to like rip off the little tab. So that's where I'm confused. Scratch off. Some people think they're rip off anyway, but
We don't rip off people.
no, not here. No way. Here under the table. Anyway, the casinos were offered a fraction of every dollar that was spent on buying those scratch off tickets in the casino. And they still said no. And that money was supposed to go to education. Now, don't get me started on education because I'm part of the system. My wife is. We're going to talk about a story coming up here in a moment. But anyway, I digress. I said to John and my guest a couple of weeks ago, here's a perfect business. And maybe you can help me with this. Get me launched in this. We get scratch-offs from every state that's available.
Mhm.
We open up a store here in Vegas. I realize you need a gambling license, right?
Right.
But every winner in like the gas stations and any of those places, the owner of that facility actually gets a percentage of the winnings.
Mhm.
Why not open a business that's just selling those things? Somebody wins, you get the commission. Every state that has a scratch off. You
Yeah.
think that's possible?
Yeah.
He's not saying anything. It's not possible. Yeah, it's good. No. No, but think about that, right? The scratch offs. Anyway, I digress. I stay up at night thinking about this stuff. Anyway, all right. Go ahead.
When we get to my book,
Yeah.
There's a funny story in there about gambling.
Oh, what page is it? Oh, look, no,
I
that's good.
don't
Let's
remember.
hear it.
Well, one time,
132.
John.
one time I was working Larry Flint. I don't know if you know who that is.
Of course, the
Um,
former Hustler owner, publisher.
Publisher. Well, he was shot in Gwinnett County, Georgia.
I remember.
And about a year and a half to 2 years later, they brought him to Los Angeles
Okay.
and bought Sonny Bono's home, and they turned it into a fortress. And he was paranoid.
I wonder why.
He was pretty well drugged up 90% of the time,
Right.
and he was moved around by a security force
Right.
in a gold-plated wheelchair.
Gold plated.
So when they moved him here, they put a team of guys together.
Okay.
And I was one of the people that quickly got to his inner circle. And I got very close to Larry.
Okay.
And he used to gamble. We come to Vegas, we
Mhm.
get the Stardust Hotel, we get the top floor, the suites for 4 or 5 bodyguards, nurses, Althea, and we would take over and he would go gamble. Well, one day, sometimes I would have the money in a gym bag, about $200,000 in cash.
That's all.
And he said, we're going to the Silverbird. Now, the Silverbird isn't around anymore.
Right.
But we got to the Silverbird and he's going to play poker. And they got the Baccarat room ready. And it had 2 half moons
Okay.
with windows in it so people could look in. And he sat there and he was playing with Amarillo Slim,
Oh my goodness.
Gabe Kaplan from Welcome Back
I
Kotter.
love that show.
And he was a high-ranking poker player.
Was he really?
Yes,
Wow.
and Puggy the Owl and Stewie Unger.
The
He's
name
a
rings a bell.
3-time world champion.
Wow.
And they made a movie about Stewie.
Okay.
And of course, he succumbed to drugs.
Okay.
But so Larry's sitting at the end of the table, and they're playing cards, and us bodyguards were all in 3-piece black suits. Larry
Right.
liked that mafia look.
Mm-hmm.
And Larry looks over his shoulder like this, and he says, "Mike." So I come over and I go, "Yes, Mr. Flynn." He says, "You know how to play poker?" I said, "Yeah." And I'm thinking, well, I used to play with my brothers. And
For pennies.
and the game I really liked was Indian poker. Do you ever?
Okay, I've heard of it.
You
Oh,
put
put
the
up to your
card-
forehead?
Yeah, everyone could see it except you.
Except for,
And so I said, "Yeah, I could play poker." He goes, "Well, tell Joe to take me to the restroom. I got to take a piss."
oh, so for you to sit in for him.
He goes, "I want you to sit in for me."
Okay.
Okay, so
Sure.
called it. The team took him away, and I sat down, and they said, "Throw some black ones in." And Amarillo kept pushing me. You need more like this. And Gabe Kaplan goes, "Leave the kid alone." I was 28 years old at the time. And everything, they put half the cards up,
Right.
half the cards down. I had no idea what they were doing. They were guiding me.
Bro, sure
So-
they were.
So anyway, next thing you know, Larry's back. I lost, and
He's wondering what you
he
did.
comes wheeling over and he says, "So how'd you do?" I go, "I lost." He says, "How much?" I go, "I don't know." And Stewie Unger had drug in the pot, and he's stacking the chips. He goes, he didn't even look up. He goes, he lost $35,000. Now this is in the 80s
Where
when
it was worth a lot more.
it was worth like three
Right.
times, as much, $100,000. And Larry starts laughing and goes, "That's the most expensive piss I've ever taken." And everyone starts laughing.
Love
So
it. No, that's great. I
that
love that
goes
story.
along with your
Yeah,
gambling
no, I
story.
love that one. Well, listen, Larry, I remember that incident when he was shot. And listen, we have the Gentlemen's Club, the Hustler. down
Yes.
on- Was that under the Hustler
Yeah.
franchise at the time?
Yeah.
It was. Okay.
Yeah, all the Hustler clubs. He started in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, the club's still going strong, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
they're
what
around.
I'm reading. I've never been there.
And that's another reason I got to write my book, because
Right.
he passed away.
Right.
And you said you read the first chapter is
Which we'll get. Oh, my
they
gosh.
lit my house on fire with
Right.
my first wife and I in it.
Right.
And that all goes back to
Sure, all
those
of
days
that.
with Larry Flynn.
Well, we'll get into that. And what he just referred to about the fire around the house is what references the Kill Zone, which is the title of the book. We'll get to that in a second. Do you follow hockey?
Yeah.
Are you you're from LA originally, yes?
Right. Yeah.
So you have the Kings out there, and but you follow the Knights, I'm sure, by now, yes?
Jump on the board on the bandwagon.
Well, who doesn't? I mean, I'm originally from Jersey. I had the Devils, the Rangers, and the Islanders. Of course, I'm a Knights fan. Of course, they won a week or so ago. I didn't get a chance really right. Didn't get much of a chance to talk about this last Saturday because I reran a show being out of town. They had, if you didn't see the parade on TV, they had the route on the boulevard, which was closed from, I guess it was coming down like roughly around Flamingo-ish, down and up and around to the T-Mobile Arena. So they projected, the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, they projected approximately 200,000 people line the parade route. Now, Toshiba Plaza, for those who've never been out here, is the open atrium area, basically outside T-Mobile Arena. It's like a park, and they have a stage and everything. And so when I saw the TV videos of Toshiba Plaza, I swear to you, I don't think you could have put a piece of paper between two people, right? They have projected about 20,000 people packed that. And I got to put that in perspective because that's more people than if T-Mobile sold out for a hockey game, because I think it's like 17-ish, 18 maybe. So 220,000 people were part of the parade. Unfortunately, Mr. Carlson kind of left things a little dark marked with his, how do I want to politically say this, with his drunk statements, shall I say, when he came out? The lady who tried pulling him off the stage, did you see any of that?
No,
at
I
all?
didn't see that. No.
Oh my goodness. It had to have been somebody from the Knights, because after a while she came right out. All right, Carlson, cut. We got no, and he just kept going. And finally, she just reached up and grabbed the microphone. And one of the other guys, it might have been Aiden Hill, the goalie, which is kind of cool because he's kind of stopped everything. Picked him up, carried Carlson like a fireman's carry, got him the hell off the stage, or at least in the back. But that lady who went out there, I want to know who that person is, because she was great trying to end it. And it took a lot of courage to do that, quite frankly. Anyway, so 220,000 people. I would love to know how that number compared to the Aces. When the Aces won and had their route, I don't think it was 220,000, but it was interesting. We discussed the difference of when President Biden, I don't know if you saw this a week or so ago after the Knights won, they said, let's congratulate the Knights, the first professional franchise to bring a title to Las Vegas. Aja Davis, who is the MVP of the WNBA Las Vegas Aces, who won last year, took exception to his comments saying, Mr. President, we're over here, you know. So listen, WNBA championship, right? We got the hockey championship. Might be a while before the Raiders bring a championship, with no disrespect. The Oakland Athletics, look, if we get more than 2,000 people attend a game here, that's a win, right? Because that's what they're getting in Oakland right now. I am not a big supporter of where they're doing all of that. William Carrier, thank you, Robert. Figures, a guy named Carrier carried Carlson off the stage. I'm not a big fan of where they're talking to build the stadium. It shouldn't be anywhere on the Strip with all the other congestion that's there. That's a whole nother story. I'm a Giants fan. I have no intent of going to the hockey puck, the Allegiant Stadium, whatever it's called. Even though the Giants are coming out here this year.
Oh.
I get a nice 52-inch screen TV, no lines to the bathroom, no lines to my refrigerator, and no risk of my health getting out of the stadium because I'm a Giants fan. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, all right, last piece of note. Nevada governor signs marijuana reforms bill into law. The governor's been signing all sorts of bills lately, including one which I tried pulling the information off. He signed off on the bill, and I'm not going to give the bill number because I don't remember it. $250 million being set aside for teacher salaries. And those guys, thank God. And the one thing with this marijuana bill that I've been harping at for a couple of years now, you know, when marijuana first came legal here in Vegas about 10 years ago, the revenue from the sales were supposed to go into the educational budget to fund our education. And if that actually happened, we would not be last or next to last in the country as we are with the lowest per student spending. Now, last week, the governor signed $12 billion to be used over 2 years to help raise the cost per student spending. But the point of my story is, as part of this signing that he did, he should have called a forensic audit, because it was Governor Sandoval at the end of his term. I don't know if you were here at the time.
Yes.
But he took the money that was in the educational budget from the first year or two of sales, moved it into the rainy day budget, which then went into the general fund to rebuild the spaghetti bowl. Now, since then, to the best of my knowledge, and please, somebody call in or message that I'm totally wrong about this, but none of that money's ever been diverted back into the educational fund.
That happens a lot. Yeah, with politics.
Right? So that's why I want a forensic audit by a company who's not involved in Nevada at all. Somebody who's not involved with the politics in Nevada, somehow find a company and get it done, because part of this bill should be money going back into the educational budget. I get off my soapbox now. Thank you very much. If you don't like it, he's my bodyguard. Tough. Anyway, all right, we're going to take our first break. We're going to come back with Mike. We're going to talk about his book, Escaping the Kill Zone, folks. I'm telling you what, this is good shit.
About time.
Damn right. You're watching out.
How unique.
It's gorgeous.
You'll find the art that speaks to your heart at Desert Valley Gallery. I've gotta have it.
So colorful.
I can't live without it. You'll find the art that speaks to your heart at Desert Valley Gallery.
All right, welcome back. John just hit the brakes on that. Desert Valley Gallery. Thank you so much for becoming a part of the Aaron's Hour family. Check them out at Tivoli Village. A lot of going on. They actually have a little cabaret night going there tonight. It's sold out, which is why I'm not really talking too much about. But go check them out the next time you're up near Tivoli Village. It's, if you notice, the gallery was not like a typical arts gallery. You usually go into a gallery, it's dark, it's, very bright, lots of great colors to draw you in. So I encourage you to go out there. Okay, enough about them, because now it's time to really get knee deep and dirty. Escaping the Kill Zone with Mike Powell. Many years on the Los Angeles Police Force, and then from there you went into other, I'll just leave it as other aspects of law enforcement until we get later into it. How long has the book been out?
A couple months.
Just newly out?
Yeah.
Like the old carbon copy? Yeah, I smell the newness on the book, folks. Available on Amazon.
Yes.
Is that the only place people can get it?
No, you can get it on shootingnewton.com. That's
Sounds like Willy Wonka created something there. Shooting Newton. All You're shooting Newton, son of a gun. Anyway.
SHOOTINEWTON.
Gotcha.
Newton is Newton Division.
Okay.
And Los Angeles, on the Los Angeles Police Department, South Central LA.
Okay.
And it's nicknamed for years and years, Shoot Newton. It's where the SLA shootout was,
Ooh.
the Black Panther shootout was.
Jeez.
I was involved in 2 shootouts. I was involved in total 4,
Wow.
but 2 there. And so it's been known as Shoot Newton forever. And
I just love the name. It sounds like a fruit drink, doesn't it? Hey, bartender, I'll take a Shooting Newton, please. Listen, reading the book, and listen, I didn't get the copy before the interview, but I will get into it. But you suggested I go onto Amazon, and I read the brief first chapter that is available to read. And folks, I'm going to encourage you to do that. How much is the book available for on Amazon?
$19.95.
Okay, well worth it. I'm going to tell you right now. Not only that, but it's a big book and actually has some pictures in it. But I read that first chapter, which for me, I'd heard the term killing zone, but not like I use it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But that first chapter, which is the same first chapter that's in the book, clearly defines what the killing zone is.
Mm-hmm.
And is that sort of where that it seemed to me, without reading more, that point of the fire, which you alluded to before, almost is like the end of the story where the rest of the book kind of builds up to that moment.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Not bad for only reading one chapter, right? And defining that and the safety of that. So for those who don't know, please define what a killing zone is, and then you can relate it to what happened, and then we'll get back into some stories about what led up to that point.
Okay. Well, the kill zones referred to as basically a military term, and snipers use the kill zone. I was trained in mountain warfare in Bridgeport, California.
Okay.
And we had sniper tactics, they called it,
Okay.
where we climb up mountains and stuff. And if we're going to take out a target, you look for the best kill zone, an area where you know they're going to go sit or they're
Okay.
going to be, and you get in a position so when they come into that area, they're walking into the kill zone.
So like an open area.
Yeah, an open
Gotcha.
area, or it could be a small area.
Sure.
But you have a kill zone. You know where you're going to shoot him,
Okay.
or take him out,
Okay.
and that's considered the kill zone.
Okay.
And the marketing people, when they read the first chapter, as you did,
Right.
they said the kill zone. We got to use that. We got to use that. And then I started thinking it's kind of a metaphor for other things I did in the book that weren't really a kill zone. But for instance, when I was undercover in the mafia, I was wearing a federal wire. When I finally got caught, and there were 3 federal agents outside listening in, they took me in a room, pulled out a gun, three mobsters, and they started frisking me. And I had taken it was an SK9 unit that the feds gave me with the shoulder harness.
Okay.
Well, of course, when I got it, I took it home and took it apart and just used the inside because it's a third of the size.
Right.
And I taped it to my ankle and ran a little
Wire.
microphone up to my waist. And so when they were frisking me, I thought, okay, they went down that leg, they're going to go down the other leg. And I thought, I need to get out of this. And anyway, I got out of it. And as I walked out, I'm ranting and raving. It was a phone sales room, a solicitation room,
Okay.
that was bringing in $100 million a year for the outfit, the Chicago mob.
Wow.
And I walked out, and when I got to, there's electronic doors. The security guard looked at me. I said, open that door. And he buzzed me open. He was startled. And then that had to close before I get out another
To the next
door.
one.
And I go, open that door. And he buzzed me open. When I stepped out, here are the 3 federal agents with their guns out and battering ram to come get me. And they had to radio in to get permission to go in and get me out of there. But I talked myself out. And that's kind of a metaphor for
Wow.
a kill zone. I was
Sure.
in another kill zone.
Wow.
And a couple other times things like that happened.
I share this with a lot of, when I have certain guests on, and with all my guests, I love listening to the stories, but there are just certain guests where I find myself fading back as if I'm watching this from the other side of the screen. So I'm so amazed by stories. It's like you're a walking movie, because as you're describing this, you're obviously, especially in a book, you have to be very detailed in painting the picture so everybody gets it as they're reading it. And so I'm sitting here, I'm listening to the description. I'm picturing every word that you just talked about, where the wire is, how they're patting you down. And all I thought about with the double set of doors was like the beginning of Get Smart. Remember how we had to go through all those elevators or the doors?
Yes.
That's what I'm picturing. And to lived it and to have gotten out of there in one piece. I mean, talk about kill zone. That should be the escape zone. I mean, don't go into an escape room with this guy, because he'll get out of there in about 30 seconds, I'm sure. So that was one situation. But let's go back. You were on the LA Police Force for roughly
5 years.
5 years, and then you had an incident where you were retired.
I was retired off due to an injury.
So then what happened after that? You talk about zebra units. We talk about the mafia. Give us a little timeline.
Well, I think going back in the police department helped what happened after.
Okay.
At the same time I was on the LA Police Department, I was working shooting Newton, South Central Los Angeles gangs, the Crips. The Bloods weren't formed yet. They were
Okay.
smaller gangs that ended up coming together, merging to make up the Bloods because they were all getting killed off.
Okay.
And at the same time I was on the Los Angeles Police Department, I was fairly new, my first year. I was a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps Reserve Unit
Wow.
in Long Beach, California.
Okay.
And the captains and lieutenants that were on the same reserve unit as I was were captains and lieutenants in Newton Division,
Oh, wow.
LA Police Department.
Okay.
And so quickly, I didn't even ask, I was put in a zebra unit. What a zebra unit is, and the definition basically is a unmarked car,
Okay.
plain clothes, two plainclothes
Black
officers.
and whites is what he's calling the black and white cars, right? That's
No.
the zebra car?
A zebra car, no color.
No, nothing.
No,
Okay.
no color, plain clothes,
Okay.
two-man unit, no radio calls.
Okay.
We have specific missions. And sometimes it'd be the detective in homicide or detective in burglary or robbery would come to us, call us down, go, hey, can you do me a favor? We're looking for this guy. He's wanted for murder. His grandmother lives here. His friend lives here. Go find him. And we would hunt.
Wow.
Sometimes a few days, sometimes a couple of weeks. And no one told us where to go, what to do. It was
Right.
up to us
I had to figure it out.
to sniff it out. Yeah.
Wow. Question came in. So how and why did you even get into the police force in the first place?
That's kind of funny because I explained it in my book.
Mm-hmm.
My friend and I were going to, well, I had a good job at the time. I was working for Firestone Tire and Rubber
sure.
Company.
Mhm.
And my buddy picked me up. I'm 22 years old. We're going to go watch a football game at the local bar and
Okay.
have a couple beers. And as he's driving, he turns left on Gaffey Street in San Pedro. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I got to make a quick stop.
Uh-oh.
And he pulls into the police station.
Okay.
And I said, what are you doing here? He goes, they're giving the police test. I want to be a cop. The first time I heard it from him. And he goes, only take a minute. So I go in, he goes in and they take him all upstairs and I'm sitting in the lobby by myself. There's no one at the front desk. And some sergeant goes walking through with some folders. He stops, he backs up and goes, hey, you're going to be late. They're going to start the test. I go, oh, I'm not here for the test. And he walks over, he goes, why not? I said, well, my friend's here and he's going to take the test. He wants to be a cop. He goes, well, if you're going to be here anyway, take the test.
Right.
And if you pass, you don't have to go on if you don't
Right.
want. So he takes me upstairs. We walk in the room and there's about 30 people in there. And about 6 of them I went to high school with.
Oh, wow.
I hung around with,
Sure.
and that kind of thing. And of course, my friend Bob Breimer. And I'm dyslexic. I explained the first few chapters after the thing explains that I was bullied as a kid because I had trouble reading and writing. You know, when you're little,
Yeah.
stand up and read aloud to the class.
Right.
And then everyone laughs at you.
Right.
You go into the schoolyard and they start punching you and stuff. And that happened for years until I
Wow.
started to fight back.
Okay.
So we go and we take the test and we turn them in. And then they said, give us about 30 minutes. We'll be back. And they go out. And everyone, of course, young guys, what are you doing here? I didn't know you want to be a cop. And everyone's making those comments. And suddenly the guy walks back in and everyone sits really erect. And he says, if I called your name, please leave the room. So he called one guy, called 2 guys, called 3 guys. And then he said, Mike Powell, please leave the room. And I get up and my heart sank. I felt like I was that 3rd grader again, standing in front of the class. And as I'm walking out, one of my so-called buddies goes, better luck next time, Powell.
Oh, so they thought it was the negative side.
I walk outside and everyone that was called before me standing waiting with the sergeant that took me up there. And they said, you guys passed. They all failed. And a couple months later, I was in the Los Angeles Police Academy.
Wow. So it was just really luck. You just happened to be sitting. They got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Let me just try this. Right.
Yeah.
So at that point, when you passed, any thought at that point to say, all right, great, I passed, but I like what I'm doing at Firestone. This is not for me.
It crossed my mind, but it happened so fast.
Sure.
Yeah, and next thing you know, I was in the police academy. Fortunately, because I was in the Marine Reserves and we were still training,
Mhm.
I was in good physical shape,
Right.
good physical shape, and it came pretty easy to me, the
Sure.
physical end. The academics didn't come so easy.
Right, because of the learning, dyslexia.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Interesting. Yeah, it's just crazy. Why it's one thing I always like to find out from people is how they get into doing what they do. And a lot of time, like you, is just like, well, it was happenstance. I just happened to be there, and we'll do it. I always just find that interesting. So, 5 years in the force,
Mhm.
injury took you out. Retirement from there. So from there, you got into these other aspects. Of course, everybody loves the mafia stories because obviously it's Vegas, right?
Right.
I mean, Vegas and mafia is like peanut butter and jelly.
Right.
So how long was the progression from the time you left the police force to the time you got involved in these other units where you were, hand in hand with the mafia guys?
Couple years.
Okay.
What happened is my first wife and I, we were the one that was in the
Right.
townhouse with me. I was injured and I had a steel neck brace.
Oh, wow.
Had 2 surgeries, had my last rites read to me.
Sheesh.
And then I'm on pain meds, drinking, and I'm not doing very well.
Gotcha.
Probably emotionally and in my head. And she said, you need to do something. You need to get a hobby or get a job.
Mhm.
And so the first time she found an article in the newspaper, local wanted security.
Okay.
And so I said, okay. And I went there. There's 4 or 5 of us taking, with suits on. And the guy comes out of the room, the hiring manager, and says, Mike Powell? I said, yes. And he goes, would you please follow me?
Uh-oh.
So-
You've heard that before,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
So I walk in, he looks at my resume. And no, I hadn't filled out a resume for
Sure.
years.
Right.
He looks at my resume and he says, so here it says you were sergeant in the Marine Corps Reserves? Yeah.
Mhm.
Trained in mountain warfare. And I
Ooh.
said, yeah. He goes, you're also trained in Southeast Asian booby traps. And I said, well, yeah, that's some time ago, when Vietnam was
Sure.
going on.
Right.
And he said, and then down at the bottom here, he goes, I know you worked at Zebra unit, but down at the bottom here in the notes, you wrote that you won a special medal at Edison Range in Camp Pendleton. It was awarded to you by the commanding officer for almost shooting a perfect score with an M14 without a scope. 500 meters away,
Sure.
I hit 9 out of 10 bullseyes.
Nice.
And he goes, just for curiosity, how big is the bullseye? I said, I don't know, never
Standard
thought of
bullseye?
it, about the size of a man's chest.
Okay.
And he goes, Mr. Powell, this is Nordstrom's. We're we're a women's shopping
Are you a
store."
little overqualified is what he's trying to say?
I didn't get the job. I didn't get the job.
I would say you'd have been a tad overqualified.
Yeah,
Yeah, because the stun gun could have been a problem if somebody was shoplifting a shirt or something, right?
yeah,
Wow.
I guess.
That's interesting. So you went for that. Then what was the next thing that you did?
Another news article.
Okay, okay.
So I went to Century City.
Mhm.
I don't know, 10, 11 floors up. I get out and there's a guy there to interview me. And he says, hey, you were a Marine reservist. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
I was in Vietnam. I go, okay, great. And he goes, you're a police officer. I said, I'm retired. Yeah. And he goes, takes out his gun. He puts it down. He said, what kind of gun is that? I said, Smith & Wesson 9mm. He goes, strip it down. So I stripped it down. He goes, put it back together. I put it back together. He goes, okay, you're hired. And I said, what am I going to be doing? He goes, you're going to be guarding an executive. And he told me more. I drive home. We didn't have cell phones back then. So I
Right.
drive home and walk in and my wife Minette comes up and says, did you get the job? I go, yeah. She goes, who are you going to guard? I go, I don't know, some crippled guy in a gold-plated wheelchair. And I go, I think his name's Larry Flint. I had no idea who he was. And she did because she's from the East Coast.
Right.
And she
right.
goes, he's a pornographer. And so
That's how that went.
That's how that went.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
John, would you mind putting up the website where his book's available besides Amazon on the crawl across so everybody can have that, please?
Shooting Newton, right?
ShootinNewton.com.
Right.
And SHOOTIN,
Uh-huh. NEW. Yeah.
like Fig Newtons, John. You were with him when he invented the cookie, weren't you, John? I can't talk to him when he's typing.
I was actually very involved in the.
You notice how slow he talks when he's trying to type?
Yeah.
No, I was writing. I wasn't typing.
Oh, he was writing first, then he was typing.
And I was chewing gum.
So, all right, so I want to let's start moving the story a little bit forward so that we can kind of give everybody a little bit of some of the things that you saw, that you did, that you're involved with, tell some of the stories. that led up to that fire at the townhouse. So where would you begin that?
Well, after working for Larry Flynn, it got a little crazy at the house,
Okay.
at the mansion, we say. There was a power struggle
Okay.
between families. People were, we say circumstances, like my friend was going to take the test and I got on.
Sure.
Well, at Larry's house, he had bodyguards around on the outside, on the
Mhm.
first floor, at his offices, at the studios. We all dressed the same. And there's pictures in there, three-piece black suits. So I was put on the grounds. I was new, and I was walking around, and another bodyguard came up to me and said, "Hey, they're coming in." And I hadn't seen them in 2 weeks. I hadn't seen anyone in 2 weeks. So we go to the side of the house. He takes me, goes, "Your position's right here."
Okay.
And there's 2 steel gates, and one motor's open, and a Stretch Lincoln Continental drives in to the side of the house, and there's 3 Half Moon steps. And they wait till the door to close. They get out. The first one out was Cliff Stewart, who was Muhammad Ali's sparring partner at one time.
Oh, wow.
And big guys. And Joe. I changed his name for legal reasons.
That's right.
And he goes around and gets this gold-plated wheelchair out. It's sparkling, and I'm
Blingy, as they would say.
I'm 15 feet away, and I'm going, "Ooh, that's interesting." They put him in it, and as they go, now these guys are big, muscle guys, and also Bill Metzer. He's in prison for multiple murders.
Okay.
But he was one of the bodyguards. They were the inner circle.
Gotcha.
They were the only ones allowed in and out of Larry's room, except the nurses.
Okay.
And so they're pulling him up the steps, and they get stuck.
Uh-oh.
And I look over and I look back, and I can see Larry's foot slipped off the pedal. His shoe fell off, and his foot was behind the pedal and the step.
And that's what jammed it?
He couldn't feel anything because he's paralyzed.
Right.
And they kept pulling and pulling, And I go, "Wait a minute." And I go over, and I bend down, and I take his shoe off.
Right.
I mean, put his foot, put his shoe on. And I happened to glance up at him, and, his eyes were a half mask. And I say in the book, his chin was down to his buttons.
Right.
But he looked at me, and we made this contact.
Sure.
And then, of course, the head of security goes, "Get back to your position." So I did, and went. And then one of the other security guys go, "Man, you got balls." I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "No one's allowed to even get close to him." I go, "Really? Oh, okay." I'm walking around. About an hour later, Cliff comes out and says, "Joe wants to see you in his office."
Uh-oh.
I'm going, "Uh-oh." So I go in, and I sit down, and he's chewing me out.
Mhm.
You know better.
Right.
You broke protocol. What if someone was up in that angle trying to shoot him?
Right.
All this stuff. He goes on and on and on. Then he's quiet for a minute, and he just kind of looks around. He goes, "Mr. Flint wants to see you." He doesn't need any more effing friends.
Right.
And I said, "Okay." So he takes me upstairs where I've never been before.
Right.
And there's a 700-pound electronic door to a suite where he lived. And I walk in, and I'm looking as I'm getting closer. Where's the door handle? And behind me, he remote opened it. So I go in, and there's a living room, his bed, a nurse sitting next to him. It was big, fireplace, bathroom with a lipstick red heart-shaped bathtub. I could see through the white tiled.
Usually found in the Poconos, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. And so I walk in, and the nurse stands up, and I hear Larry say, "Over here." So I go over and I sit down, and he starts asking questions. He says, "Bill says you were at the Joe says you were at the LA Police Department."
I didn't know.
And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "You ever shoot anyone?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Oh, you ever watched 60 Minutes?" And I go, "No, what's that?" He was brand new at the time.
Right.
He goes, "Oh, it's a great reporting show. You got to come up and watch it with me." And, a couple of days later, I'm in his private jet with him and the team.
Right.
I'm part of the team.
Now you're in the inner circle.
Right. And the whole time I was there, I got very close to him.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, when I was writing the book,
Right.
I was talking about how close I got to him. And then I stopped and go, "Was I really that close to him?" Because I had to prove everything I'm saying.
Sure.
And so I looked through the papers, and there's a Los Angeles magazine article written by, I forget the gentleman's name, but it's entitled "Porn Again." That's when Larry turned religious.
Sure.
And in the middle of the magazine article, it says Larry and Althea's favorite bodyguard is Mike Powell.
Wow.
So I felt, okay, I can keep writing when I'm talking about
Right.
because Larry and I did some silly stuff.
I bet.
And
that'll be for another show, folks.
and so the trouble was brewing as the year went on. And then one day I'm sitting having ice cream in the kitchen and by myself, And Edith, Larry's mother, comes walking
Okay.
in the kitchen. She walks over and turns the faucet on and lets it run and comes over and says, Mike, can I talk to you in confidence?
Yes.
And I said yes. And then she told me that, but I knew about the power struggle. You kind of know.
Mhm.
And she says, I haven't been able to see my son in over a month. Miles, who's the uncle, hasn't been able to see him. His brother Jimmy has been cut out. And it was all run by the security.
Okay.
And so she says, Jimmy wants to meet you. And so I met him before.
Mhm.
He seemed like a nice guy. So it's fine. So he comes into San Pedro and we meet. And I bring a friend of mine, Larry Pye, he was a Zebra unit officer who worked in another division,
Okay.
but I've known him for years. I brought him and I got him a job there. He was working the first floor. So we talked to Jimmy and Jimmy says, we think that they're trying to take over the company because part of Joe's friends and family are running the office at the magazine.
Okay.
So I said, this is a little above our pay scale. And
Need to know, and I don't need to know this.
and Larry says, I know a private detective who's pretty big. He's done the Beatles. He's done Brando.
Wow.
He's a friend of mine.
Okay.
Said, okay. And then Jimmy says, I want you to know, though, that Joe was in an argument with another person in Columbus, Ohio, another employee. And that employee got shot with a high-powered rifle because he walked into the kill zone.
Mhm.
And Joe's Jeep got blown up with dynamite in his driveway.
Jeez.
So he said, be cautious. So we go to this Beverly Hills office, and I changed this guy's name.
Of course.
He's written books.
Okay.
And I say, as soon as I walk in, I go, I don't like this guy.
Mhm.
You just
You
feel
just
it.
sensed it.
Yeah,
Sure.
you said, I don't like this guy.
Sure.
I mean, he's wearing Hawaiian shirts, slacks, and slip-on
Right.
shoes. I mean, and pomade hair. I said, no, that's not my style. So Larry, who knew him, started talking to him, telling him the whole story.
Mhm.
I never mentioned my name, never mentioned anything. And we leave. And the next 2 days later, I get called that Mr. Flint wants to see me in his room.
Uh-oh.
So I go upstairs and Joe's at the foot of the bed. And Larry says, Mike, I need you to go to Mexico. Your eyebrow raised. So
I know, right?
and Joe says, yeah, you need to go to Mexico tomorrow. And then Larry says, well, my mother, Edith, has cancer.
Okay.
And they have a cancer clinic, a cleansing clinic in
Okay.
Rosarita Beach, where I met Steve McQueen was there at the time.
Okay.
And so we get in the limousine. We're being driven down there with Uncle Miles and Edith, and it's really quiet because I don't know who knows what.
Right.
And then Edith says, Mike, can you have the driver put up the privacy screen? So he rose it up, and she starts talking. And then Miles says, I want you to know I was in the house, and I got a call from a private detective who said he had some information for sale.
Uh-oh.
And so we put him through, and he got $10,000 for saying that your friend, Larry Pye, was in the office on behalf of the family because of a family struggle over I think there were $500 million. And so then he said, but I heard another bodyguard tell Joe, you get Larry up here, Larry Pye, up to the house, and I'll dump him. So, so I thought, oh, this is getting crazy. So when I got to Mexico, I called Larry and said, don't go up to the mansion. Don't go up there. And I told him what happened. Well, Larry's a little, crazy. He called him on the phone. He says, you meet me in West LA. There's a parking lot at such and such. You bring your guns and I'll bring my guns.
So he called him out.
Yeah, I called him out.
We're going to stop right there for a quick break. We're going to leave you hanging on that shootout in that parking lot. It's like the OK Corral. You're watching Aaron's Hour with Aaron Phillips. I got Mike Powell. He is the author of Escaping the Kill Zone. As we continue, more stories. We'll be right back.
Now?
Hi, I'm George Miklos.
Hi, I'm Rick Upchurch.
Hi, I'm Aaron Phillips, and we are
The Round Table. Check us out.
Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific Time Live.
on Facebook page as well as WWDB TV.
Hello, everybody. It's me, President Trump, greatest president in the history of presidents, and I've been on a lot of shows, believe me, but the best one by far is Aaron's Hour with Aaron Phillips. This guy is so amazing. What a great interviewer, and you can catch him every Saturday from 12 to 1. 12 to 1. It's a tremendous show. You know why? I was on it, and the ratings went through the roof. Check it out on WWDB TV. That's WWDB TV. It's huge.
Thank you, John D. Domenico, as always, for your support on that. All right, welcome back to Aaron's Hour. I got Mike Powell here. Now, folks, I'm listening just like you are. I'm sitting here in amazement. I'm hanging by every word that Mike is talking about in the story. I can't wait to read the book now that I've got the stories. But it's like I read Jaws first, then I went to the movies, never went in the ocean again. Anyway, so we're Aaron's Hour with Aaron Phillips. You're going to want to go back and watch the show. So we were talking about now almost a shootout at the OK Corral parking lot between Larry Flint, right, and the other Larry, right?
Well, the security guards, bodyguards from Larry Flint, and one of the other bodyguards,
Gotcha.
Larry Pye.
Okay.
That didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
But something almost as exciting happened. Is Larry went to West LA Station and filled out a conspiracy to commit murder report.
Uh-oh.
I ended up having to do one as well a couple weeks later. So that he filed that, and then he said, one of my good friends, Marv Inquest, has had a major crimes in downtown LA. I'm going to go talk to him. So Larry was mad. So he goes down and reads them. And I go to work, and I know he's going that day. And I'm walking around. I come downstairs. I was going to the kitchen to get something to eat. And one of the other bodyguards is down there with a walkie-talkie who kind of runs the outside perimeter.
Okay.
And someone says, "Hey, look at that helicopter up there. It's flying kind of low."
Uh-oh.
And so, I go out in the courtroom, and sure enough, I know what it is. It's they're taking photos for a SWAT raid.
Okay.
So I go back to the house, I grab my briefcase. Now we didn't have cell phones back then.
Sure.
So I get in my car and I take off and come out of the gates of Bel Air, hit Sunset. I go to the closest place in Beverly Hills. I put money in the thing, and I called Marvin Quest's office.
Okay.
And the secretary answers. I said, "Is Larry Pye there?" He goes, "Yeah." He gets on the phone and he goes, "Get the hell out of there!" He's yelling at me. So I go, "What'd you do?" He goes, "Just get out of there." So I hang up the phone. I drive home, and it's on the national news.
Wow.
A SWAT team raided his house.
Wow.
And one of his bodyguards took a shot at the SWAT team. They didn't shoot back. He's lucky.
Right.
They arrested him.
Right.
And they bashed in the doors. And then they called in doctors.
Okay.
I don't think we were ready for that yet.
Okay.
You know, it was premature. But the doctors reported that he was on a lot of medication, but they didn't feel he was in danger.
Okay.
Because they were pushing the drugs on him. He was using Dilaudid.
Gotcha.
And so then the lawyers came in and filed a $3 million lawsuit against LAPD and against Larry Pye and myself.
Okay.
So I get a call from the city attorney, says, "Hey, you guys are retired. I can't represent you.
Right.
You're going to have to represent yourself."
Oh, jeez.
And what do they call that? Not prosana?
I think so.
Yeah, prosana. So he goes, "But I'll, answer any questions you have." So we fill out the paperwork ourselves. We go to a federal civil rights violation charges, and we go there, and the city attorney goes, "Hey," and he, shakes our hand. He goes, "Okay, listen, they're going to ask a series of questions. The judge, I'm going to stand up and say it. Sit down. You stand up. He's going to ask you a question. You sit down." And you're like the bobbing heads.
Right.
15 minutes, we got the whole case thrown out. $3 million case.
Comment came through the chat room there from Robert. Thank you, Robert, here in town. He says, "Nice guest, Aaron, and thank you, Mike, for your service and your service with LAPD. And he loves your shirt." How come you don't love my shirt, Robert? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So thank you, Robert, as always, for checking in.
Yes.
So you mentioned a word with Larry Flint earlier, paranoid. He was always paranoid.
Right.
Was it because of all the medication he was taking that became paranoid? Or because of the fighting he knew was happening?
Medication, I'll tell you, for one instance, I was sitting next to him, watching TV with him. He was pretty drugged up, and head of security walks in and says, "Mr. Flint, Interpol just contacted me and said that 2 Russian assassins have gotten into the country."
Jeez.
And they're going to they're coming to kill you, but don't worry, I have my security. I have my security staff ready. Now I'm sitting next to him, and I know it's all a lie, but I don't know what to do at that time.
Sure.
And Larry, you can see him shaking, physically shaking.
Right.
So Joe goes down and leaves the thing. I get up, I follow him down to his office. By the time I get there, he's got his feet up on the desk and he's watching the Roadrunner cartoons. And I walk in there and I go, "What the hell was that?" And he goes, what? I go, that's just wrong. That's wrong. And he looks at me, takes his feet out, and he opens the drawer, pulls out his 9mm, puts it on the desk, and he goes, you got a problem with the way I run this outfit? I says, just wrong. You shouldn't do that. He goes, how do you think we keep our effing jobs? I just shook my head, and then he put his feet back up. I'm looking at him, and I turn to walk out, and I hear him laughing wildly, and he goes, hey, Mike. I turn and I go, what? He goes, what do you like, the Roadrunner or the
Wile E. Coyote?
Or the Coyote?
Jeez.
I just shook my head and I walked
So
out.
a lot of that stuff was just fabricated by the guys inside to make him paranoid for job security.
Yeah.
So what caused? I mean, and I'm trying to put this on.
And in a bigger world,
Right.
the company was run by acquaintances of, for lack of a better legal term, of Joe.
Gotcha. So what made Larry Flynt the target in the first place of people wanting to take him out or the fight? Was it because of the value of the estate? What was it that caused all of this hoopla in the first place?
Pornography. He was it was in Gwinnett County, Georgia, and he was in federal court. Him and his lawyer got shot too.
Okay.
And the word is that the guy who admits shooting him, and the feds and the police all agree. I forget his name, but I don't think so. I'm different.
That's all right.
I was on the inside. I don't think so. But he said he did it because he had put a picture of a black man and a white girl together in his pornography magazine.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, it just goes to show you that society doesn't always like everything. All right. So we're about 9-10 minutes left. So let's move the story forward as close as we can, knowing we have about 9 minutes left to the fateful story that you open the book with. So when do things really start getting hot for you personally? Not that all the stories haven't been, but to the point where everything started coming to your front door now.
Well, it's some of it you might say is my fault.
Okay.
I mean,
well, first step to recovery, folks. I guess, right?
That's the first time I've said that.
Okay, you heard it here first, right here in Aaron's Hour.
Even my wife's laughing.
Never heard him say that before.
No.
All right, pick her up off the floor next week.
So, I'll explain it to you, but we probably won't get to the
right.
mafia. The
okay,
mafia.
That's fine.
So after all that goes down, I get a call from. I get contacted by a person named Ed Rassin.
Okay.
Okay, and he's a pretty big guy. He comes and meets with me, and I didn't know at the time, but he was a member, Special Forces, and a member of the Phoenix program, the CIA assassination program.
Okay.
And he says, Mr. Guccione wants to meet with you. And I said, Mr. Guccione, Penthouse Magazine? He said, yes. And I said, what does he want? He goes, well, that would be between you and he.
Okay.
I said, okay. And he stands up, he takes out lays his the airline tickets, some cash, and his information how to get a hold of him, where he lived and stuff like that. And he goes, he'll be expecting you the day after tomorrow. And he turns to walk away. And I go, wait. I said, I didn't say I would take the job. And he smiled and goes, how's your wife? Minette, isn't it?
Uh-oh.
And I said, yes. And he said, well, he'll be seeing you the day after tomorrow. And he walks out. And my wife and I had an argument about it because she wanted me out of the business.
Right.
And I was getting death threats, and so I fly out to New York, and I meet in Guccione's 22,000 square foot townhouse. He got me merged to him together. He had a private museum with Rembrandt, Picasso, Degas, and bodyguards all over the place.
Sure.
So we go into his library when they say he's ready. I go sit in his library, and his books, his beautiful library. When I walk in, I don't know if you know Bob Guccione, but
I remember the name. I mean, obviously at that time I was a little younger than I am now.
He was kind of an artist from Europe.
Okay.
And then he started the magazine. So he's wearing black leather pants, a polyester shirt open to his navel, and about 8 chains, gold chains around his neck.
Which was the look at that time.
Yeah. And he says, hey, glad you can come. And he has this raspy smoker's voice.
Right.
You'll never forget it. And I sit down, and they say, this is Gruckman, his lawyer, Roy Gruckman, who was Doris Duke's attorney, Jerry Falwell's attorney, and his attorney. And Mr. Gruckman will let you know what we would like you to do. And Gruckman says, you know, Larry Flint and Bob Guccione hate each other. I mean, let's put that on the table. And I said, well, yeah. And he goes, and they've been suing each other left and right over the years and calling each other names and stuff like that. Well, Larry Flint took a picture of two gay guys involved in sex and superimposed Guccione's face on the guy kind of getting it from, you know, I don't know.
I think everybody else can figure the rest of the picture out. That's fine.
So Guccione filed a $80 million lawsuit in federal court in Columbus, Ohio. And he won.
Wow.
And the jury awarded him $39.6 million. Well, but 2 weeks later, the judge said that's too much money and dropped it down to $4 million.
Jeez.
So
180.
it was a federal judge.
Sure.
And Guccione says, we think he was bribed. He bribed the judge. We'll give you $1 million cash if you investigate this and can prove that Larry Flint bribed the federal judge. And I said, okay. So the first place I took off to was Columbus, Ohio. And I started doing my investigation. And as I did my investigation, of course, everyone that you're talking to, it gets back to head of security. And they start threatening me. And then Guccione, we talked about 7 times over the phone. And every time we was talking, he goes, oh, can you prove that Larry Flint, you know, it's like he's reading it. Can you prove that Larry Flint bribed the federal judge? And I said, I never said that. Never said that. I said, send the $1 million and I will send you a report and I think you'll be happy. And that's as far as I'd get until he said, you need to come out here. So I take Larry Pye with me again. And we fly out to New York and we're sitting there with Gruckman and we're talking and going back and forth. He says, well, have you or have you not proved that and this and that? And then Larry Pye, he's not quiet. You don't remember, you bring your guns, I'll bring my guns. And he says, we know what you want us to say, and then you're going to F us. And then we'll end up with nothing. And Guccione looks at it. I'll never forget this line. He goes, you ever wonder why God gave us 2 ears and only 1 mouth? That's so you speak, or you listen twice as much as you speak. And he goes, everyone out of the room except Mike. And right there, I knew it's. I don't know. I had this feeling like this was all lost. And we sit down, and he scoots closer to me. He goes, Mike, between you and I, can you prove that Larry Flint was paid off? Man,
I paid off the judge.
Paid off the federal judge. And I said, well, when I took the case, my wife's looking at me weird. You have to read it to explain it.
Sure.
But when I took the case, I knew that they knew I worked for Larry Flint. And I knew that they knew I was in court with the judge with Larry Flint when he was paid off. They pretended they didn't know.
Gotcha.
And I pretended I didn't know that they knew.
They did.
And that went on for months.
Did you get that, folks? You got the scorecard here.
So what happened was I go there and Guccione blows up. And like I said in the book, I'm not a bad guy. I just know a lot of bad guys. And so I'm walking out the door and my conscience is kind of churning. And I open the door and I look back at him. And I guess I did this out of my conscience. And I also think I did this to get one up on him. And it said, Mitchell Werble. And he goes, what? I go, Mitchell Werble. I said, Larry Flint put a contract out on you. Mitchell Werble's probably going to be visiting you. And Mitchell Werble was an OSS officer before the CIA who worked in Burma and in Cuba and all these places. And Larry Flint had put out a contract on Guccione, Hugh Hefner, Annenberg, and Frank Sinatra. Sinatra.
How did he get caught up in that?
I don't know.
He probably knows everybody.
And
he was a friend of Annenberg's.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, a friend of Annenberg's.
They were neighbors in Palm Springs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I did.
So
don't play him in Trivial Pursuit, folks.
So I'm thinking when I wrote the book, how am I ever going to prove this? Well, I Google it in, and it comes up in the LA Times that Sheriff Block, at the time he was Sheriff Block, has the check, and he says the names.
Oh my God!
That Larry Flint hired Mitchell Werble to kill these 4 people. And I go, oh, okay, now I can write it in my book and be safe. And ultimately, Mitchell Werble died before he can cashed a check. And I read other magazine articles. It took me 4 years to get FBI files on the judge case.
Right.
4 years. Freedom of Information Act. I did it 3 times. They denied there was ever a case. I said there was a case. I was in the middle of it because the FBI pulled me in.
Sure.
And it went on and on for 4 years. And then my wife said, why don't you just hire a lawyer?
Right.
Hire a lawyer too.
Was that with you with all of this? Okay, Paul. So we have Pauline here, his wife, and I'm verifying that you were at that time going through all this, and she's like, "Yeah, I was."
Yeah, she told me to write the book. She told me to get a lawyer. So the lawyer emails me like 2 weeks later. Okay, it's 900 pages long. It's going to take 750 something working days to get it to you. You know, I don't do math. You're a math guy. Yeah, so
It's a lot. It's a lot. Let me ask you a quick question as I'm looking at the clock. I'm going to put you on the spot with one thing for a reason.
Okay.
What's your schedule next Saturday at this time?
The boss right there.
Can we do part 2 next week? So
Are you going to be here next week?
yeah, it's the first. It's the final week I'm out of town.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
All right.
so if you're good with that, I'd like to continue this because we had during the break, Mike turned to me and said, we haven't even talked about the mob yet. So, well, although I don't know if you saw Robert's comment, he goes, wow, who would have thought the mob was safer than Penthouse and Hustler? I mean, you can't, that's got to be in the next edition. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Honor among thieves.
Honor among thieves. So if it's okay with you, let's come back next week because I want to delve more into more of the book, the stories, the mafia stuff, because people are folks, I'm sitting here listening and it's like watching a movie. I hope you all realize that it's like, I wish I had popcorn here as I'm listening to the stories. So what I want to do, if you don't mind, let's skip to the night real quickly because we're running a little overtime right now. And he's got another show coming in. Let's talk about the night that boy pulled up in the Mustang with the ratty sneakers and you smelled kerosene outside. So talk about that for a moment, if you would.
Well, my first wife and I were.
Leave it to John. I got Skinny Pop popcorn right here for us. Leave it to John.
My wife and I were watching this. We're young,
Right.
28 years old.
Sure.
And that's when I can get down on the floor and actually get
Watch
up
it, right.
without
Exactly.
grabbing onto something. And laying on the floor we used to put the pillows against
Sure.
the bottom of the couch and
Mhm.
watch TV, and big 19-inch color TV.
At the time, 19 inches.
Yeah.
Right. It's huge.
And we're watching All That Jazz.
Right.
With Roy.
Yep. Roy Snyder.
Roy
Yep.
Snyder.
Mhm. Jaws fame, in case you can't make the connection.
Yeah, Jaws. And, I was basically asleep, I thought.
Sure.
But I can hear
You
the
heard
wind
stuff.
outside.
Right.
And she had her cat, Reggie, down at the bottom by her feet. And all of a sudden I thought, geez, there's frogs jumping in a pond.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it sounded like. And I
Right.
opened my eyes and the cat's head went. And all of a sudden I heard splashing going around the house.
Okay.
So I grab my gun. I tell my wife, stay down.
Right.
And I go to the front. Now we had a 2-car garage and then the living room and then the bedrooms are on top.
Okay.
And we overlook the harbor,
Gotcha.
Los Angeles harbor.
Okay.
So I go over and I open the drapes and here's that kid, white t-shirt, Levi's and worn out basketball shoes. He has a 5-gallon kerosene can next to him. And he looks up at me. We make eye contact.
Right.
He no emotion, nothing. He just struck a match and threw it on the wet pavement, and
And it
the
came right
roar came. I mean, it was loud, so loud. I backed up and knocked a chair over, and my wife at the time jumped up and started running around the room, and she's trying to find the cat.
Sure.
And she's going, Reggie, and I can see the windows turning orange.
Okay.
And it started to
From the
smoke
burn. Right.
from the burn, and so I hear her say, we can get out this way. And the back door wasn't on fire. But my backyard, you went out, there was a swimming pool,
Right.
a wall, but across the street was a tall hill.
And somebody could have been perched up there.
In the prone position,
Mhm.
that's where I would have been
Right.
if I was a bad guy.
Right.
And she started to reach for the door, and I grabbed her and yanked her away. I go, no, that's the kill zone. And she says, what are you talking about? What's the kill zone? And
They were hurting. Let's put it this way. The fire was kind of hurt. The thought was hurting you
yes,
to go out the back door, i.e. the kill zone. So
Right.
whoever that was up there representing whomever could take you and your wife out But obviously that didn't happen.
Right, and
That's because you recognize
they
it,
weren't trying to
obviously.
burn the house down.
No, they were trying to
That's
get you
why-
out.
That's why they use kerosene on stucco walls.
Right,
And so I went to the front door, put my hand on it, see how hot it was,
right,
and opened it. I told my wife, "Don't breathe in."
right.
And we went out, because you can burn your lungs.
Sure, sure.
And we went out, and as I got down, there's the kid standing by his Mustang.
Right.
And so I grabbed my gun and I started running down there, and he walked. He walked around, got in the car, and started. And I was going to open fire, but there were homes across the
Sure,
street,
sure.
and the lights were on. And it was about time you were watching TV with your family.
Sure.
And I
Wow.
decided, for safety reasons,
Of course.
not to fire.
Did they ever find the kid?
No, they
No?
didn't. They didn't. And then, next thing you know, helicopters, police helicopters, fire department.
Everybody was out.
Everyone knew who I was because
Sure.
there had been news articles written about some of my cases. I
Gotcha.
did cases for the FBI.
And this happened on the heels of which event? Not the case we're talking about with Flint, because that happened later on. This happened while you just retired from the force?
No, that happened at the end of everything.
Oh, so that was okay.
That
Gotcha.
was, and they were Larry Flint's bodyguards.
Gotcha.
Three of them, a driver,
Right.
Alex Marty and Bill Metzer, were, when I was working with them, asking me if I needed some side work. And they were never cops. They tried to be cops. They were never cops. They
Okay.
were all Vietnam
They
vets.
didn't fail the test. They failed the test.
They
that
failed
day.
the test that day. They were Vietnam vets.
Okay.
And they were doing for hire murders.
Okay.
And they got busted 3 years after I left in 1983 for the murder in Los Angeles, the LA Times called the Cotton Club murder.
Okay.
Robert Evans,
Yep, I
producer
remember.
of The Godfather
Yep.
and Love Story, and was involved in putting money together to do the Cotton Club and the Sicilian and Two Jakes,
Okay.
the movies.
Yeah.
And they got greedy. One of the women, Lainey Jacobs, hired these guys, and they went and they took Roy Radin, who was a producer from New York, who was bringing the money in. They took him up to Gorman, California, and shot him 13 times in the head because it was Friday the 13th. And they put a quarter stick of dynamite in his mouth and blew his face
No.
apart. And about 2 years later, maybe a year later, a beekeeper was walking out and he saw a hand sticking out of the ground.
Hope you're not eating lunch at any time at this point. It's just in the story. But listen, I mean, that's what goes on. I mean, the overkill, so to speak, in certain situations is very common in that environment. So you just got an explanation of what the kill zone is and why the chapter 1 opens with that story about the townhouse with his wife at the time, and obviously, fortunately, getting out safety and surviving all of these stories. But next week, and again, do I have to send an invite to remind you to go? No, next week you'll come back because I want to delve more into the stories you've experienced with the mafia, because everybody loves mafia stories, especially here in Vegas.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear some of those stories. I don't know if I have time to read the book between now and then, but I'm going to try my best.
But that you can go on Amazon and read the first chapter,
Yes.
as Aaron said, for free.
Yes.
You can just go on there.
It's like the preview chapter.
Yeah, preview
and that's
chapter.
what I did to learn about the kill zone around the townhouse and Reggie the cat and all that good stuff. So that's why I know that the stories. Listen, I can't wait till next week as it is to hear the rest of the
And you've
stories.
got 30 seconds?
Yes.
30 seconds. What I want to say is, when one of the reasons I didn't write this book for years and years, my wife kept pushing me, is because I had a different journey through my law enforcement career due to incidences.
Sure.
Broke my neck and retired off.
Right.
And then because I worked at Zebra Team, people started hiring me.
Right.
A happenstance with Larry Flynn.
Right.
But I had a bit of a reputation working the Zebra unit.
Gotcha.
And so it just kind of grew from there. And I was doing jobs that normal private detectives would not do.
And we'll get into some of those
Yeah.
next week.
And so to write the book, I knew, because I'm a talker.
Yeah.
I tell stories about what happened,
Sure.
and I've had people say that guy's full of shit, So I knew I had to prove every single thing in
Sure.
this book.
You have to. It gives you credibility to the story.
And it took me 4 or 5 years to get the documents. It took me a month to write the book.
Jeez. I used a ghostwriter because if I wrote my own book, it would be a comic book and done in 2 pages.
I have a challenge for the viewers.
Uh-oh.
All right. My challenge is go to Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
read the first chapter, and try not to buy the book.
Yeah,
Good
absolutely.
luck with that.
Let me tell you, I went to sleep last night putting out into the universe that Mike was going to come in with a book for me. And obviously it worked because I was going to. Thank you for this. Seriously, brought this in for me. I appreciate that. All right. Listen, Part 2 with Mike Powell next week, 12 to 1 p.m. for our July 1st show. July 8th, a little programming note. We're going to rerun a show, maybe Mike Powell 3. I don't know. We'll rerun something because I will be on vacation in Lake Havasu on the 8th. I will be on a pontoon boat playing Captain Stubing that day. So I will not be on the air on the 8th, which is why I think the 1st, to have Mike come back and share more of his experience and stories is the way to go. Thank you for coming in, my friend.
Thank you
Pleasure
for having
hearing
me.
this. Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thank you, Pauline, for putting up with this stuff all these years and making him write the book, by the way. Plus, for you, I had to imagine it was pretty cathartic to share the stories.
Yes.
So we're going to learn more next week, more of the mobsters, more stories, because if nothing else, that will entice you to buy the book. Again, Escaping the Kill Zone, now available on Amazon or Shooting Newton. I love it. I love it. I picture like an animated, like, dog sheriff. I'm sheriff of Shooting Newton territory. No offense to you all out there. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. As I always like to say, be kind to everybody. Why? Because we're all we have. See you next week. Aaron Zauer, Mike Powell, part 2 next week. Thank you for watching, everybody.